Jack, Lane David Benson.
Hello, Morris.
Hello, Morris.
Good to see you both. How did you guys first meet from a sort of theatrical point of view?
Should I tell this?
I think you should.
Well, actually, it was in this very building where we are now, the Capitol Horsham, where Jack, on what date?
September 15th, 2015.
That was when I first met you, because it was the first performance of Jack's show, Wisdom of a Fool, about the great Norman wisdom. And I was asked by a friend who had been involved in the show, come down to Horsham and see this show, which I reluctantly... Oh God, Horsham, are you kidding? But I did, and I was so glad I did, because I was absolutely blown away by the show.
No.
Maybe laughed, maybe cried, and I thought, I want to work with this guy one day. So when I had the idea to do a different show, one about Dad's Army, I called Jack, and he, thank goodness, said yes. No. He said yes, he was available. And so we've been doing that show for 2 years, but we'll come back to that.
Is that your recollection of how you met?
I think you've embroidered that. No, it is. Yes, no, it is. Well, I knew David before I had got into acting, because David was in One Man, Two Governors, and when I was working as a technician here, and One Man, Two Governors was being live to cinemas, I was running it live. So I knew of David way before we even met.
But not only that, but in fact, again in this very building, I did a performance in probably about 2003 or 4 of my one-man show about Kenneth Williams. And at that point in the show, I was using a follow spot. And he was the follow spot operator.
I was the operator.
All those years ago, and I probably just went, hello up there, thank you very much, or something like that.
He was a blob on the stage, Morris.
Yeah, just a blob, and he just followed me
I've seen the
went to the bar.
Well, of course, I met David for the first time over 20 years ago.
98, I think it was.
Yes, I interviewed you over 20 years ago.
When we were young men, Morris.
We both were. We still are at heart.
At heart. Well, the audience can watch us aging gradually as they review these interviews we've done over the years.
But not gracefully. and of course, I was there that night, that very first night.
Oh, you were there too?
I was indeed. Because we hadn't seen each other for some years.
Yeah, it was reunited, weren't you?
So it's this here in Horsham. So it's brought you together. So it's your idea to work together originally.
Yeah.
And we'll come back to what you've been doing and what you're going back to. But tell us a bit about this current show.
Christmas Carol. Well, it's my favourite story. I've always loved Christmas Carol. I mean, there've been so many versions of it in film, theatre, you name it, musicals. And I thought I'd want to have a crack at it, you know, and I want to have a go at playing these beautiful characters. And it's a nice departure for us, because we have been doing sort of the older comedy material, and I thought it would be a good challenge for us to try some new characters.
But am I right, you were going to do it as a solo originally?
I was going to do it as a solo, and I think you begged me.
No.
On your hands and knees.
For a free ticket. I wanted to see you. I thought it'd be brilliant in doing a solo.
No, and I thought, no, why, this is ridiculous. We should, because we've been working together so closely on Dad's Army, we could actually create a lovely two-man show out of it. And because when you work together, you start to get used to each other's rhythms and you trust each other, and that's a huge leg up to have when you're going into a new production anyway. So I thought, why don't we pair up and do it as a pairing?
And I was extremely honoured and flattered as well. I really was.
How do you actually turn a show, a book, a story like Christmas Carol into a two-person show?
It's difficult because, I mean, in the original story, you're probably looking at about 35 or 40 characters. So the first thing I did was to take the original novel, take all of the dialogue out of it first, leave the narration, because I didn't want us to come to the front of the stage and say, Scrooge wasn't happy about this, ladies and gentlemen.
No.
I wanted us to act it out.
And they go, oh, yes, he was.
He's behind you. So I took all the dialogue out. And the only parts that are narrated are actually the opening and the end, where the whole show is properly performed and we turn into all these characters. Well, I certainly turn into a lot of characters. David stays as Scrooge throughout the entire show. The reason for that is because we thought it'd be nice for the audience to have that anchor. So Scrooge stays... The storyline of Scrooge stays strong the whole time, and David isn't morphing into all these other characters. They're always coming back to David.
I'm reacting to him, almost like this kind of sprite or spirit figure, I feel, who's come along to show Scrooge his wrongness of his ways, and he sort of suddenly become Belle, the girlfriend of years before, or his nephew, or any of these people, just the drop of a hat he can become them, because he is like this is the way I see it, he's this spirit who's been come along to save Scrooge, really, and to save the people around him as well.
But does that, so you playing Scrooge, being the anchor, does that allow you the mental ability just to switch you're throwing a character and then you've got just the moment to switch into another one.
Yes, I mean some of the changes are on a dime, you know, and you're immediately coming out of playing a businessman and going in as Mrs. Cratchit. So you've really got to be able to you change everything, body language, vocal, costume even at times. So it's a lot to do in a very short space of time, and it's making those changes have a lovely fluidity to them. That's part of the biggest part of rehearsal, I think, is making those changes happen, making them smooth, the transition smooth, making sure they are stand-alone characters. You know, the moment you appear, oh, right, you're someone else now.
And it's character more than voices, because people don't know what what Mrs. Cratchit sounded like, but you've got to get the character.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and their mannerisms and their twitches and their, you know, little details. That's what people will pick up on. So yeah, there's a lot going into it at the moment in rehearsals.
And so there's no narration. The narration comes out through
things happening.
Through the characters.
You know, through the audience following the characters. Because this is not a novel, you know, the dialogue is lifted. But whereas in a novel they would say Scrooge went down the stairs, we don't need that on stage, you just want to see it happening. That's what audience want to see is, you know, they actually see it happening, see these people interacting with each other, how their faces change and their voices and all the rest. And the emotional journeys that they go through. And that's the great thing about Christmas Carol. Charles Dickens in we should know this. I'm talking about 34, I think. He sat down and wrote a book that made him cry when he wrote it. Apparently he sat there when he was writing about Tiny Tim and Scrooge's change of character. He had to keep wiping his eyes and carrying on writing because he found it so moving himself. He hit on something which is incredibly powerful. And it's very hard to say exactly what it is, because I find even rehearsing it, thinking about it, going over the lines, it makes me emotional. And I don't know quite what it is, but it's a story as well that you see in other shows and other stories. I was thinking the other day, Mary Poppins, Mr. Banks, the father character, goes on a very similar journey to Scrooge, from crabbed cynicism and caught up with money and materialism to letting all that go and suddenly feeling light and free and airy and liberated. And that's why they're so giddy and just want to go out and fly kites or whatever they do.
Sounds like children. Sounds like a plum of a part for you.
It's a plum of a part for any actor, because it requires you to go through many different stages. I mean, from initial, you know, as I say, cynical, horrible, hard, angry, to terrified, to guilty and shameful, to at the end complete hysterical joyousness, all in one character arc, as it were. So any actor would, I think, kill to play the part of Scrooge, and as we know, many wonderful actors have played it. Who's played it?
Alistair Sim.
Alistair Sim.
Michael Caine.
Michael Caine. I've forgotten who did it.
Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey didn't.
Jim Broadbent.
Jim Broadbent
on stage.
Good heavens, though. Simon Callow, of course.
Simon Callow, of course.
Do you think age, as in life experience, helps play Scrooge?
I'm sure it does, because I think you have to have lived a bit to have, and understand how we all have a bit of Scrooge in us, that part of our characters that is, cynical or fearful or whatever. And you have to, I think, have gone through life to realise the value of human relationships, the value of generosity, well, you don't have to, because many people go through lives and they never do have a moment of enlightenment. But I think definitely life experience, as in all acting, informs what you do, don't you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I find that there's a lot in it, in the part of Scrooge. Dickens really it was his great masterwork. The character of Scrooge and his journey was a profound one, and one that still, all these years later, 200 years later, has an immense emotional wallop. And that is what we're looking forward, I think, to giving to the audience.
Now, you're used to both the two of you together playing multi-roles in the Alec Guinnesses, if you like, of British sitcom. You've recently been doing The Dad's Army, and we'll come back to that later. Yeah. But there you're working off scripts.
Yes.
Right. Here you've got to get the characters and get the words.
Learn it.
Sounds as though it must be quite a challenging...
It is because, and also the set that you see behind us, we also move this. So we interact with this a lot, and
This is a character almost.
This is almost a character. This one truck, as it's called in the business, all folds up, it revolves, it turns into Scrooge's front door, it turns into his nephew's front door, it turns into the Cratchits, it turns into all manner of things. So
box of tricks.
This is a complete box of tricks. So, and we move this, we interact with this as actors. It's not all just technicians. So not only are we then worrying about where we are as the characters, how we are as the characters, we've then got to worry about how we're moving the scenery, how we're interacting with the scenery, making it fluid again, not making it look eggy or awkward when we're dealing with it. So it's a tall ask. It is a tall ask for two people to take on all these characters and all this set. But I like that. It's a good challenge.
You were the one who asked. It's your idea.
Yeah, I know it was.
No one to blame, you see. No one to blame.
And you've been involved in the design of the stage, of the
Yes,
set?
so I'm between me and my father Mike, who I run Engine Shed.
Who's behind camera today?
Behind cameras today. We've done all this grubbing up, making it look dirty, and just Dickensifying this beautiful piece of set, basically. And on the other side, there's a sort of a doll's house which shows the exterior of the house. And then there's all sorts of other peripheries around here. We've got the Scrooge and Marley sign we've made, all the props we've put together, and I'm also lighting designing it as well. So we've also got to light it. So lots of side light to give you real atmosphere.
Control freak.
Yeah, that's the one.
But you have to be all the perfectionists. They are.
No, it is.
Control freaks is a negative way of saying actually really paying attention to detail and make sure it's done right.
There's nothing wrong being in control.
No, it's like Chaplin, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
God, he took over everything, absolutely everything. He owned his own studio, and to have that, to see your vision through to the nth degree, that you're not answerable to anyone. If you want it that way, you'll have it that way, and that's your vision. And that is a lovely, freeing thing to have as an actor, I have to say, because if you're just a jobbing actor, you're put into that situation, you're being told by a director, you're being told by a choreographer, you're being told by this, that, and the other. You are being boxed in at times. So in this sense, we really have a playground here. If I want to light down there, light up here, I can do whatever I want. Yeah. And that's really it's a lucky thing to be able to do.
Does Jack allow you suggestions, allow you to...
Yes, very much
yeah,
so.
no, David,
we don't have
absolutely.
we haven't formally, decided how this works, but I'll make a suggestion to Jack, maybe you could drive this, that, there. We kind of direct each other, and then Mike as well is fantastic. So it's different from, say, doing a show, as I did some years ago at the National Theatre, the One Man, Two Governors, where you very much do as you're told. It was a fantastic show, and I loved being part of it for 3 years, but there was no leeway to add anything of your own or to make suggestions in rehearsal. The people at the top did that, and then you did as they said. This is the total opposite. This is making your own work, making your own show, and being in control for better or worse.
Now, people have seen you both over the last umpteen years will see the sorts of performances you've and they're quite wide-ranging, varying, a lot of comedy. What should they be expecting to see from you when they come and see this? It's something different from you guys, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and that's what I wanted. I wanted something different for us, and we enjoyed when we were doing some of the Dad's Armies, playing more of the drama. And that's certainly what we get to do in this, especially with Bob Cratchit and moments like that. So it's good for us to flex our muscles a little bit more. But there's still comedy. You know, there's so much comedy in Dickens' work. You've got the washerwoman and Mrs. Dilber and Joe, when all that scene's happening, there's lots of comedy in that. There's comedy in Fezziwig, of course. You have to have the comic relief, and Dickens is a master of that. You look at Oliver Twist, you've got, bang, there's Fagin to lighten the tone. So there's lots of fun to be had, but no, it's a good challenge for us and for David, especially with Scrooge, to go on that story arc.
That's right. I mean, we both we could do multi-voice and do all that, but I thought in this one it was better if I stayed as one character and followed through his through line. I found it incredibly moving part to read, and I want to put that into my performance and give that to the audience. Thing is, I have to be careful, because I find I get choked up even now doing when he suddenly turns nice. I find it incredibly emotional, and my job really is to stop that in rehearsal. Don't lose control of it, but allow the audience then to take it on, and if they're all crying at the end, or if what we really want to give them is I can't remember who it was who said that the best kind of laughter is laughter through tears.
Yeah.
Who was it who said that?
I don't know, but I love it.
It is. Laughter through tears. That's exactly what you need at the end of Christmas Carol.
Yes.
And it's all there in the words.
Yeah, and
All
we've
you
got
have
a
to do is
lovely ending on this, haven't we? It's a choker.
Yes, he's got,
It's a choker.
He's got it. What I love about this is Jack's had so much in his mind that he wanted to realise on stage, and there's lots of lovely imagery and visual moments. Which
So how long have you wanted to do this for?
Oh, quite a while. Yeah, I mean, I've always loved this story. So it's been on the back. Actually, funnily enough, when Mike and I did an adaptation of Steptoe and Son, we actually thought you could write a new version of Steptoe and Son and set it in Christmas Carol. So you had Harold dies, and it comes to Albert dies and comes back to visit the son. And torments him, so he still hasn't got rid of him, and he gets taken on these journeys. But you could have a wonderful time riffing on it, and that's where I really started bubbling ideas about Christmas Carol, I suppose, and that's what led us to this. It's been on the back
How
burner
lovely
for a
is it
while.
as an actor to be in a position where you can literally create something yourself, guide it the two of you, take it without having to have people getting too involved.
Oh, it's hard work, don't get me wrong. It's stressful, it's very stressful, and it is a lot of hard work. But it does mean you're not waiting for the phone to ring. You're not waiting for your agent to say, oh, I've got a little job for you. And hounding and auditioning. You're just working, and that's what all actors want to do. They just want to work. And that is so lovely. I'm very fortunate because I'm so associated to this place, and they allow me to play here. I'm very lucky to have this space and to be able to do that. As an actor.
So when and where is this show on?
So it is on at the Capitol Theatre in Horsham.
Horsham, Horsham.
Lovely, beautifully enunciated there.
Oh yes.
13th to the 24th of December.
2019.
Of course.
2019, although we'll be performing this in perpetuity.
In case you're watching this on catch up.
That is
It might
true.
be catch up. I think this show will be available probably in the next year. Might not be able to bring the whole set because it is rather cumbersome, but it actually won't require. I think this is a wonderful thing for this production here. Is it's going to have all this. I'm sure the show will have a life beyond here, but it might not be in quite the same form. But this is going to be the proper version of it, the one we want to do.
launch of it.
The launch. Can I just say as well that this brings me back full circle to my first ever acting job, which was a school performance of Christmas Carol when I was, I suppose, about 8 or 9. And you do it for the parents that come in the evening, and we did Christmas Carol, and I was cast as the ghost of Christmas Present. And I was sacked because apparently I wasn't jolly enough. They said I was too miserable.
There we are, Scrooge had already begun.
That's say.
It's true. But so then I was recast as Peter, the son of Bob Cratchit. And all I remember about it was that they gave me a goose that was papier-mâché, painted brown and then varnished. And they said, I stood outside the door, I remember, of the hall where we were performing, and then they said, go! And I just walked on with it, and the whole audience went, oh, as I came on with this lovely goose. And I just couldn't believe it, the noise that they made. And they did it the second performance as well. I thought, this is a nice job to have. I think I want to be in show business.
And David, we've recreated that scene for you tonight.
Yes.
Singing live.
For the first time since 1969.
It's amazing, though, to bring it full circle.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first time on stage?
Crumbs.
With an audience?
There is a photo of me in as one of the three kings, I think, in the nativity, hovering around somewhere, but looking very shy, and my eyes were running because I used to get nervous, and my eyes would always run. I think that was probably my first time ever performing. I think.
But there's something about an audience, isn't there?
Oh yes.
Well,
Because you've done television,
everything.
you've done film for television, but something about it being in front of a live audience.
Well, even if you're doing television, which I was 20 years ago, lucky enough to play Noel Coward in Goodnight Sweetheart, and there were the scenes that you did like this, and they were pre-record, because there were technical issues meant they couldn't do it in front of an audience. But on the Thursday night, whatever it was, you'd go out in front of an audience and do it, and it's absolutely terrifying. And it's just like doing a first night of a show. You don't know if they're going to laugh or not. and very scary, but it totally focuses your mind. It gives you this massive energy concentration, all these eyes and ears listening to you, and it focuses you in a way that nothing else does. I mean, have you ever performed live on stage? You made speeches.
Well, no, I've done a bit of stage work over the years. You know.
Have you?
It's many at school.
Oh yes, what did you play?
I was in the the government inspector.
Oh,
my
okay.
Gogol.
Oh,
Yes. And you won't be surprised to know I played Fagin.
Did you?
Yes, I did. With a beard. Obviously, it wasn't this one because I was much younger. But I used to do a lot of. In fact, I did far too much stuff at school in the arts and not enough on my work, really. Which was a great.
I don't think that's a problem.
Which was a great
Morris.
disappointment for my parents.
Well,
They wanted me to be like a solicitor and a barrister.
no, boring job.
But so I like to do all the artsy stuff. But I know what it's like, that audience. And also I know how you feel immediately after a show as well.
Yeah, euphoria.
And then it's like...
Well, it's funny, you
know.
feel high
Yeah.
and ecstatic, I think, in proportion to how terrified you feel beforehand. Because if you just go on, oh, easy, jaunty, jolly, you don't feel that,
No.
that feeling of having
And
survived.
it's a relief as well when you come off, you know, when you
massive
finish. It's
relief.
a huge relief.
Particularly if you haven't made
You
any
just-
mistakes.
I mean, you're still relatively early on in your great... I know it's going to be a great career. You've somewhat further along.
I'm nearly finished.
But do you still love it? You still have the passion for it? I mean, I remember seeing you on stage over 20 years ago and it just came out to the audience.
Well, it did, and that was my first work that I'd done, really, well, on my own, my first show that I created in '96, before some of the viewers were even born.
Yeah.
And so
Was that
was
before you were born?
No, you were alive in '96. She was 9.
In
96.
Oh, 90, no, I was alive, yes.
He was alive.
Yes. 1987 I came along.
It's ridiculous. Like yesterday, isn't it?
1987.
Nobody was born in 1987.
Yes, it was a bad year. Some strong winds, apparently. Michael Fish got it
Oh,
wrong.
there were, that's right, yeah. Was it during that you were conceived?
I think it was. I think there's a little bit too much information there. Might want to cut that one out.
Hurricane? What hurricane?
But no, it's a long time. Yeah, I've been doing it a long time, but I still feel
love it.
absolutely, nervous and all that. But depending on how prepared you feel, I think. Really.
Yes,
But if you're not sure, so yeah, it's still absolutely terrifying.
Mm.
Terrifying. In fact, I did a show earlier this year where I had terrible stage fright. It was about Brexit, funnily enough.
Well, I think everyone's got stage fright
Yeah.
about that, in fairness.
A farce about Brexit.
Farce. How did you manage to turn it into a
I was going to
farce?
say the job's been done for you.
amazing.
There's no more work to be
Really,
done.
it takes a bit of foresight.
It's extraordinary, isn't it?
So you've got this show coming on at Horsham, 13th to the 24th of December.
Yes,
How can
indeed.
people get tickets?
They can go on the website, which is www.capitolhorsham.com, or they can phone the box office on 01403 750 220.
Say that number again.
01403 750 220.
They don't write numbers like that anymore.
Jack David, thank you very much.
Thank you.